Hey guys, Dark Skeleton here, and I'm back again to continue my tutorial series on basic level 1 Hearthstone decks. All of these decks only use cards that are available to each player immediately upon finishing the tutorial, which means that every single player has access to these cards. All you have to do is unlock your class by beating another player who has the class, or beating the innkeeper playing the class. And then you'll have the class unlocked, plus all of these class cards. So today's class is the Shaman, who has a hero power which allows you to summon one of 4 different totems, similar to the actual game in WoW, and revolves around using those totems in conjunction with your minions and other spells to beat your opponent. I put some of the class cards into the deck. A lot of them are very situational. The ones that are most situational and I don't recommend putting in the deck are Ancestor Healing. Frost Shock is questionable. I have one of those in the deck. Rockbiter Weapon, that's actually a very good card and you want both of those in your deck. And Wind Fury is another situational card, so we have one of those in the deck. And Hex is an absolute must for any Shaman. It is one of the best removal cards in the game, turning an enemy minion into a 0/1 taunt. So as for the other cards in the deck, let's go down the list. Oh, I actually did put one Ancestral Healing in the deck, and the reason for that is because you might have some bigger creatures later on, such as a Sinjin Shieldmaster or Boulder Ogre, which will trade into your opponent's minions without dying, but then you can fully heal it with this card. And in the case of something like a Boulder Ogre, it doesn't already have Taunt, so giving it Taunt means it's going to protect your other minions too. It's not a bad card, it's just very situational. The upside is that it costs 0 mana, so it has the potential to have some pretty decent value, but a lot of the time it's going to be a dead card in your hand, so you only want one. I don't recommend 2. Next up we have a Singular Frost Shock. This is a card which is inferior to the Earth Shock that you get as a common later on. The difference is, this card deals 1 damage and freezes, whereas Earth Shock silences, and silence is generally a better effect. But what you can do with the freeze effect from a Frost Shock is play this card against a big enemy minion that is posing a huge threat to you, has a lot of attack damage, and you don't want that minion to be trading into your minions or hitting your face with it. In the mid to late game, this has the potential to get you some tempo because it just takes one of their minions out of play for an entire turn. And there's one totem called the Wrath of Air totem, which gives you +1 spell damage. In combination with this, it'll end up causing Frost Shock to do 2 damage instead of 1. You can use it on the enemy hero, but I would only recommend you do that if your enemy hero actually has a weapon. Freezing the enemy hero does prevent enemy heroes from actually being able to swing with their weapon. It doesn't prevent them from playing cards or anything like that, though. It's an okay card, but it's one of the cards that you'll probably be replacing by level 10. Next up we have Rockbiter Weapon. This card allows you to give any friendly character, including your hero, +3 attack until the end of turn. It's good in terms of its cost to damage value, or ratio. 3 extra damage for 1 mana means you can use this on yourself to swing at an enemy minion, protect your board, or it can give one of your friendly minions enough attack to take out something much bigger. There are also cards you can combo with this, something like a Wind Fury. Wind Fury down here is a spell that, well, it gives your minions Wind Fury, but what Wind Fury, the effect does, is your minion can swing twice in 1 turn. So in combination with Rockbiter Weapon, that means you won't get 3 extra damage from that minion, you'll get 6, which is pretty nice. In itself, though, just alone, it's pretty solid, though. It's a good card and you want 2 of them in your deck. Next up, we have the almost notorious now, Elven Archer, which deals a 1 damage battle cry to any target on the field. The ideal situation is you use this on your opponent's minions, which have gotten really weak, low on HP, and you use the Elven Archer to deal that final point of damage, getting some extra value from that, and then you have a 1/1 on the board. Next up, we have the Voodoo Doctor. It's a pretty mediocre card. What it does is it restores 2 health to any target. The ideal target for this would be one of your bigger minions, something like a Sinjin Shieldmaster, a Frostwolf Warlord, or possibly a Boulder Ogre. In itself, without the battle cry, it's still a 2/1, which is okay considering it's a 1-cost minion, but the ideal situation is you use it to heal something. If you have no minions on the board that need healing, you can always use it on yourself too. And as I explained before, Wind Fury gives any of your minions the bonus effect to swing twice in one turn instead of once. And what I can add on to that is that you should only play this on a minion that is actually able to attack this turn. As you probably know already, any minion that you play to the field, unless it has charge, cannot attack the turn it's played. So you want to save this until it has survived until the following turn, so that you know for sure it's going to actually get to swing twice. Because if you play this on a minion and buff it up, it's just going to become a target for removal, and if it gets removed, then the Wind Fury did nothing. So use it when you're ready to go on the offensive, or at least to clear the board. Next up we have Acidic Swamp Ooze. We have 2 of them in the deck, as many of these basic decks have, because it has the battle cry to destroy your opponent's weapon, which is excellent against enemy Shamans, Warriors, Paladins, and Rogues, the 4 classes that have weapons. Being able to destroy your opponent's weapon for free, and then still having a solid minion on the board, gets you a lot of value, and there are some really strong targets for Acidic Swampies if you're able to hold on to it until later in the game, such as a Warrior's Gore Howl, a Paladin's True Silver Champion, or a Rogue's Assassin Blade. So it's a great pick. We have 2 of them in the deck for that reason. Next up we have Bloodfin Raptor, which is a ooze, an Acidic Swamp Ooze, without the Battle Cry effect, which means it's strictly worse in any deck except for Hunter. It's just in here as a 3/2. It's okay stats. The 2 cost minions for the basic set are not very strong. So this is about as good as it gets. But as you level up, you'll be able to replace it pretty soon. And you definitely want to replace these Raptors before you replace the Acidic Swamp Oozes. Next up we have Hex. As I mentioned earlier, this turns any minion into a 0/1 frog with taunt. You want to save this for your opponent's big minions whenever necessary. No matter what minion it is, even if it has Divine Shield, even if it has a crazy Death Rattle, it gets hexed, it gets churned into a 0/1 frog. And if it is a Death Rattle minion, the Death Rattle never happens because it didn't die, it churned into a frog. Which, in many cases, is actually really, really good. You could use it against an enemy Karen Bloodhoof, which, when Karen dies, it summons a copy of itself, basically, but without the Death Rattle effect. Hex just removes it outright. Great card. Next up, we have Razorfin Hunter. This is going in pretty much all of the basic decks, simply because when you combine its 2/3 stats with its 1/1 boar, it has an overall stat value of 3 attack and 4 health, which is quite good for 3 mana cost. It's on the upper end of what you can get for the 3-drops from the basic set, and just from a pure value, having 2 minions for 1 and having decent stats overall, it's a pretty good pick to put in your deck, so I recommend 2 of those. And then we have Shouted Sun Clerk, another pretty good value card. It, on its own, is only a 3 attack minion with 2 health, but it also, as a battle cry, gets to buff any minion already existing on the field by +1 attack and +1 health. And that's very good because it will allow your other minions to trade better and possibly fight without dying. And if you can get that kind of effect, it's well worth playing. Next up we have 2 Nish Inventors. It is a very solid card that you occasionally see in some higher end decks, including Shaman. And what makes it so good is that when it's played, you get to draw a card. It's better than the lower cost Novice Engineer because it has a lot of extra health. It has 4 health opposed to the 1 health and 1 attack that you get for the 2 mana cost to draw a card minion. And it also has 2 attack. And what 2 attack and 4 health means is that it will trade pretty well with 2 cost minions, because a lot of those have 3 attack and 2 health, and then after that, it'll still be on the field and survive. But worst case scenario, it deals some damage to something, and you still get an extra card on the back of it, so it has some pretty good value there. It's a nice card to have in your deck. Next up, we have Sinjin Shieldmaster. I've been recommending this in a lot of decks. The reason it's particularly good for Shaman is that it protects a lot of your other minions, and your totems that you summon with your hero power do count as minions, and a lot of them have nice effects, such as the Wrath of Air totem, which is better in Shamans later on when you get a lot more offensive spells. But the Healing String totem, at the end of every turn, heals all of your minions up by 1, and that is really good in this deck that plays a lot of minions. So if you can play a Sinjin Shieldmaster to protect your Healing String totem, then the Healing String totem will just keep healing your Sinjin at the end of every turn, and that's very nice. It's great to have taunts for things like that. Next up, we have Darkscale Healer. It's another card I believe is rather underrated. It has the same stats as a Chillwind Yeti, in that it has 4 attack and 5 health, which is pretty good for trading against weaker minions. But in addition to that, for 1 extra mana cost, it restores 2 health to all friendly characters. If you have something played on the previous turn 4, like a Nish Inventor or Sinjin Shieldmaster, odds are they're going to take some damage by turn 5, whatever your opponent decides to do on their turn. So if that creature still remains, then you can heal it up with the Darkscale Healer. If you as the hero have taken any damage, possibly by using a Rockbite or weapon against one of your opponent's minions, or just by taking damage from your opponent, possibly a Hunter's hero power, then the Darkscale Healer will also heal your hero up. If you get 2 targets with it, then that's some pretty nice value, and it's still a Yeti. So I think it's a pretty good card, especially if you already have a good board presence. Next up, we have Frostwolf Warlord. Typically, it's an average card, but I think it's a little bit better in Shaman because, as a Shaman, you can pretty much summon a totem every turn you feel like it, so you're never really going to run out of minions. Although those totems by themselves generally don't have any attack except for the 1/1 fire totem. But what this minion does is it gets +1/+1 for each other friendly minion on the battlefield. And yeah, as I said, you can summon totems every single turn. Those count as minions. In addition to your other dudes, you're pretty likely to have at least 2 or 3 guys out on the field around turn 5 or turn 6 as long as you're making good trades. So that'll buff this guy up to a 6/6 or 7/7, and to get those kind of stats for 5 mana is quite nice. On its own, its stats are horrible, which is 4/4, but I think it's a safe bet that you would be able to have minions on the field as a Shaman. So it's an alright card, and I don't feel bad including it in a Shaman deck. Next up, we have Boulder Ogre. This card is just great in general because it has a similar stat distribution to Darkscale Healer, in that it has slightly less attack than it does health, which means it will trade very well with lesser minions, things that cost 4 mana or 5 mana. And if you can kill 2 of those big guys with this even bigger guy, and then maybe even heal it up with a Darkscale Healer to keep it on the field a little bit longer, then Boulder Ogre is just going to get great value. And that's what this card does best. It's a good finisher card, and I recommend 2 of those. And lastly, we have 2 Stormwind Champions. This card gives all your other minions +1/+1, and I feel this is a bit stronger in Shaman than the other classes that you have to choose from, in that Shamans make a lot of totems, and totems are still guys. So if you do play the Stormwind Champion, then your totems are going to have at least 1 attack, or 2 in the case of the fire totem, and you can actually use those to fight your opponent's lesser minions, and make some trades there. So Stormwind Champion, it just buffs all you guys up, and it's a great value card, because it'll make your fighting force that much stronger. So as long as you still have guys in the field when you get to turn 7, then it's a good play. It's a little bit weak on its own, because it only has 6 attack and 6 health on its own. And generally, you're going to need to protect it, so if you can put it behind something like a Sinjin Shieldmaster as a taunt, you can feel a lot safer about playing it. But beware enemy hexes or polymorphs, because those spells are probably going to be saved for this guy. But if you do get away with playing it, then you're good to go, and you should have a good chance to win the game. So that's it for Shaman today. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comment section down below. And I'll be following this up with a level 10 video, updating all the 9 classes right after I finish the last one in a couple days here. So keep an eye out for that. Subscribe if you want to see that. And thank you very much for watching. See ya.